Hi, I'm Dan Robinson with Solar United Neighbors, the Indiana Program Associate, and I'm glad you're joining us for the Solar 101. This session will cover the basics of solar economics, and how the co-op works with the Tippecanoe and Montgomery County Solar and EV Charger Co-op. So what is Solar United Neighbors? We're a vendor-neutral national 501c3 nonprofit. By vendor-neutral, that means we, as a nonprofit, we don't favor one installer over the other. We are here to help customers go solar and be advocates and support for that. So we help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. We help people go solar through these co-ops, which we'll talk about more later, as well as having a national help desk, which you can contact through our website, solarunitedneighbors.org. We also hold educational and social events, both in person and online, to help people join together as part of a solar movement. And in turn, then we help people and we advocate for better solar policy at the national and state level. So just a moment before we get going on tonight's session about talking for equity, Black and Indigenous communities of color bear an unfair share of the cost of energy production, but receive fewer benefits. Families of color are disproportionately harmed by higher utility bills and shutoffs. And on top of that, housing discrimination is a barrier to home ownership and thus solar ownership. Now, when Sun started out with a group of economically and racially diverse neighbors, they focused on solar because it helped people pay their electric bills. It also helped them stay in their homes at a time when Washington, D.C., where the group started, was being gentrified quickly, and the whole country was in the middle of a financial crisis. Rooftop solar lets communities invest locally, it creates good local jobs, and brings control of the energy system within our reach. So we're working toward a new energy system that everyone can participate in, one that is fair and equitable, with solar energy at the cornerstone. So our impact nationally, we've helped almost 8,000 families go solar, and you can see 67 plus megawatts of solar and 877,000 metric tons of CO2 saved. And here in Indiana, we've helped over 250 households go solar. And the stats that I'm most impressed with on this chart here are the $10.3 million in energy savings over 25 years, as well as almost 50,000 metric tons of lifetime CO2 offset through the solar systems that we've helped customers install. So why go solar? There's lots of reasons for this. Yours may be one or more of these. Maybe you want to save money on your electric bills, or maybe you're looking for some energy independence on your own apart from the utilities, or you're looking to increase your resiliency and the resiliency of the electric grid through solar panels, or you're looking for environmental benefits to fight climate change, reduce pollution, whatever. Whatever your reason for going solar, one or more of these, the solar co-op is a great way to do that through Solar United Neighbors. So here in the Tippecanoe and Montgomery Solar and EV Charger Co-op, we have a lot of wonderful local partners, including the cities of West Lafayette, Crawfordsville, and Lafayette, along with Tippecanoe County, the town of Battleground, the student group Confront the Climate Crisis, and the Leagues of Women Voters from Greater Lafayette, as well as Montgomery County. So for all these wonderful local partners, we are grateful for their collaboration on this project. We also have some statewide partners, including Faith in Place, Solarize Indiana, Earth Charter Indiana, the Hoosier chapter of the Sierra Club, Citizens Action Coalition, the Hoosier Environmental Council, and the Hoosier Electric Vehicle Association. So we are grateful for their support as well. So what we're going to cover today is one section on solar technology, a second on solar economics, and the third on how solar co-ops work. So let's get started with solar technology. You know, I get this question a lot. Does Indiana have enough sun to go solar? And we have plenty of sun. You can see there in the southwest part of the US, in the orange and yellow section of the country, there's lots of solar, and that's a great place to have it. But even here in Indiana, in that yellowish greenish area, we have plenty of sun for solar. You know, Germany is one of the leaders of solar in the world, and they have a lot less solar resources than we do here in Indiana. With all that sun to grow all those corn and soybeans, well, we might as well grow a little electricity with it as well. And solar's been growing. Back in 2011, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission expanded net metering. And net metering is the policy whereby for every kilowatt hour that a solar owner sends out to the grid, so you produce energy, you use it at your home, and if you're not using all the electricity at that point, you send it out to the grid. And net metering says that you get the credit equal to 1 kilowatt hour at the retail cost of electricity off your bill. Well, in 2017, then, a bill was passed, SCA 309, that began the process of ending net metering with the large utilities in the state: NIPSCO, I&M, AES, Duke, and CenterPoint down in southern Indiana, what is now CenterPoint down in southern Indiana. So that net metering was phased out over time. And in 2021, this is what the map looked like. Solar exploded in Indiana, with net metering, the deadline having ended last year on July 1st of 2022. So net metering had a positive impact on solar in Indiana, and we'd love to see that come back for the large utilities. But over time, you've seen that growth, and that growth is continuing here in Indiana with customer-owned solar. So how do solar panels work? They are solar photovoltaic, which means the sunlight hits the panels, it hits the silicon in the panels, and that gets the electrons vibrating in there, and that produces the electricity that you use in your home. So some important pieces about how a solar system works, quick overview. You have your solar array on the roof of your home or business, and the sunlight hits that solar array and it produces DC or direct current electricity, which sends to the solar inverter. Now, the inverter is the device that changes that DC electricity into alternating current or AC electricity, the kind of electricity your home will use. It sends that electricity to your electric panel in your home, where it's used by lights and refrigerators and computers and whatever else you use electricity for. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're not using all the electricity at that particular moment, it will send it out through the meter and out into the grid, where it's used by your neighbors and the folks just down the street. So kilowatts and kilowatt hours, two important pieces of understanding with a solar system. And kilowatts are how systems measured in the size of the system, and then kilowatt hours is the electricity produced that you actually use and you see on your bill. And I kind of think of these two as like horsepower and miles per hour in a car. Well, horsepower, the size of the engine of the car, is that size whether it's sitting or whether it's moving and doing work down the road. And that's kind of how a solar panel works. It's sized in kilowatts, no matter, if it's producing electricity or not at that moment. Kilowatt hours, however, is kind of like miles per hour. It's the work that's being done, and it's measured in those kilowatt hours. So you could be going slow or fast, measured in miles per hour in a car. Well, your panels could be producing kilowatt hours a little bit or a lot, depending on the time of day. The average size in a system in Indiana is going to be around the 6 to 7 kilowatt size, and that's going to be based on your particular site, your building or your home, and the goals you have, what your budget will allow, whether you're trying to cover 100% of your consumption or less. And just to give you a sense here, we've got a system of about 12 panels. That's 4.2 kilowatts, a solar panel array to scale, and these are using 350 watt panels. So those panels are made up of it's kind of like a sandwich. It has different layers. You have the solar cells in the middle. You'll have encapsulant on either side of that. Then you'll have a back sheet where the junction box is attached, and that junction box is, of course, what sends the electricity out to the rest of the array. And in the front, you'll have glass that'll cover that, very heavy-duty glass that will protect that. And then the frame will hold it all together, and that makes up a module or a panel, people call them. And stitched together, these make up a solar array. The next piece of or component of the system is the racking, the way the panels are attached to your building. You'll see workers here putting panels or modules on a racking system that's attached to a typical asphalt shingled house. There are different styles of racking or different systems of racking depending on your roof. Whatever your roof is, you're going to have a system that will fit that. In the upper left, you'll see flashing that is used on an asphalt shingled roof on a home. The flashing is put under the shingles and then nailed to the roof and sealed so it won't leak, and the water will just run off of that. On the bottom left, you'll see clamps where it's clamped to a metal roof, for example, where it doesn't create any holes in the roof. It just clamps onto those standing seams, and then the panels or modules are hooked to the clamps. Now, you might think about having a panel, if you have enough space in your yard or your land, to put them as a ground mount. The ground mounts are very efficient. They're even more efficient than panels on a roof because you can orient them to maximize your solar production. They're a little more expensive to put in because you have to have a conduit that'll run from the panels to your home where your inverter will most likely be mounted, and of course your electric panel is for your home and your meter. But again, they can be very efficient, so they might make sense for you if you have the room and the desire to do that. But in the case of a roof, what makes a good roof for solar? Well, in our latitude, south is best, but east and west work very well and can make great layout for solar panels. Sometimes people will put purposefully panels on their east and west facing roofs in order to get both the sun in the morning and the sun later in the day to get longer production. The one orientation that won't work at our latitude is north. If you have to put panels on your north side of your home, then that's probably not going to work very well. You want little or no shading on the panels. There's a saying in the industry, 9 to 3 shade free. So 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, you want to be shade free or momentarily shaded. So you want to make sure there's no trees that are blocking where the panels are. You want to have enough space to mount the panels. You want to have at least 200 square feet of space on your roof to have a minimal system put on there. It doesn't have to be contiguous. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. You might have a vent or a chimney or something coming through the roof, which means you have to break the panels up into different sections, and that's fine. You want to have at least 10 years of life left in your roof to make it economically viable. If you have less than 10 years left in your roof, then we recommend that you replace the roof before you put the panels on. Now, if you decide not to do that, you might want to put the panels on anyway, that's fine. But just know that you'll have to most likely pay to have those panels taken off when it's time to replace your roof. So we recommend having at least 10 years of life left on your roof. Inverters are the next piece or component in the system. I mentioned those earlier. The inverters are what changes the electricity from DC to AC electricity. And there's two different kinds of inverters. There's a string inverter and there's a microinverter. A string inverter is one where the entire system is strung together and they go to one inverter that handles that conversion for the whole system. Whereas microinverters are ones that are mounted individually on the back of each of the panels. And you can kind of think of this as kind of like the old Christmas tree lights. In a string inverter with the old Christmas tree lights, if one light bulb went out, then the whole string went out. And with string inverters, if one panel starts to produce less electricity, like say a cloud is going over it, for example, and it starts to produce less at that particular moment, then that will affect the production of all the panels on the string and will lessen that production. Whereas with a microinverter, because each of them are mounted individually with the panels, if one panel's production is affected, it doesn't affect the rest of the panels and they can continue to produce electricity as normal. So you might be asking yourself, well, why would you have a string inverter versus a microinverter? Well, a couple of reasons. A string inverter, being a single inverter, is going to be cheaper than having a number of these microinverters mounted on the back of each panel. Also, when you have multiple components, these inverters rarely fail, but if you have multiple components like with microinverters, there's always an increased chance of one of those not working. So it depends on your situation which one makes more sense. Now, nowadays with string inverters, you can have what they call a DC optimizer, which will lessen the effects of that dampening of one panel over the other, and that can compensate for that quite a bit. So whichever situation makes sense for you, is good to have a conversation with your installer to say, what makes sense, what is more economical. That's a decision you want to have with the installer when they design your system. The next component is the electrical panel. The systems are a simple connection into the panel. Most home electric systems won't need an upgrade before going solar. There might be an occasion where that might be the case. And again, that's something that your installer can help you determine. But in most cases, you won't need to do that. So what happens when the power goes out? That's what people think about a lot when they consider batteries. Now, the thing to know about a solar system is that when the grid goes down, the solar is going to shut off. It's a safety mechanism. If there's a storm coming through or something happens on the grid where it's out, most likely there are going to be utility workers out on the lines trying to fix them. And what we don't want to have happen is your panels producing electricity, you're not using it all at the moment, you send that electricity out to the grid unexpectedly, and it could cause a safety hazard for the utility workers. So the system is designed to shut down. So if you want to have power during outages, then you'll need to install a battery. So you might want a battery storage if you have frequent utility outages at your place, if you have critical loads at home, like a well pump or medical equipment that you can afford to lose for even a moment, or if you just want to be prepared for an emergency or disaster. That backup power, it's a good thing to have. However, if you want to save money or get paid to send electricity out to the grid, then batteries aren't going to make economic sense for you right now. They're still too expensive. The price is coming down. And the moment may come in the future, in the not too distant future, where it makes more economic sense for batteries. But right now, that's not the case. Now, with electricity prices going up, depending on where you're living, you might see that day come sooner than others. But just know that it's going to come at some point, just not there yet. And if you want to know more about batteries, you can go to our homeowners guide to find out about battery storage for homeowners at solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. And even though it doesn't say it in the title of our co-op, as a solar and EV charger co-op, you can get batteries through the co-op as an option. Just know that that's the case. So some frequently asked questions. How long do systems last? Usually when I get asked this question, people are referring to warranties. So there's three kinds of warranties on your system. There's a warranty for labor, which will of the company installing the system, and that could be anywhere from 5 to 25 years, depending on the company. The longer the warranty, obviously, the better the company is going to have for the labor that they do. The second kind of warranty is on the inverters and the other equipment that is in the system. The warranties on the inverters is going to vary a little bit. The warranties on anywhere from, again, that sort of that 5 to 20, 25-year range, depending on the type of inverter that you get. And the rest of the equipment is going to be in that same kind of range. Now, the third kind of warranty is the power production warranty. That means, well, how much electricity will the panels or modules produce at the end of the warranty period compared to the beginning of the warranty period. And typically these power production warranties are going to last 25 years. I've seen a couple that have even last 30 years, but usually 25 is the norm. And they're going to range, again, depending on the type of panel that you get, they're going to range in the low 80s to around 90, maybe even the low 90 percentile, meaning that, let's say your power production was for 85%, meaning that at the end of 25 years, your panels are guaranteed to produce 85% of the electricity that they produced in year one, which I think is pretty good over a 25-year period. Now, the second answer to the question of how long do systems last is they're going to last longer than 25 years. Just because you hit the end of your warranty doesn't mean that the production is going to suddenly fall off a cliff and go to zero. It's going to go down faster than it had been, but it'll last for some time after that. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be the case for you, but just as a story, a couple of years ago, I was working at a farmer's market in West Lafayette, and a woman came up, this would have been in 2021, and a woman came up to me and asked me if I knew of anybody who fixed solar panels. And so we talked a little bit about that and some installers that might be able to help her. And I asked her, well, so when did you have your system installed? And it was a small system. She was just powering her water heater. And she said, oh, well, I had it installed in 1979. So that was over 40 years prior to that conversation. So I'm not guaranteeing yours are going to last over 40 years, but they will last longer than the 25-year warranty period at some level. Homeowners insurance. What about homeowners insurance? Well, first off, you want to be sure to let your insurance company know that you had panels installed. They're going to want to know that, and you're going to want them to know that in case something should happen to the home, and you can include that in your insurance reimbursement. But in terms of affecting your level of home insurance, it's probably not going to affect how expensive your home insurance is. Typically, most of us are going to have insurance at a certain level. You know, it's insured up to this level, and then whatever, 250,000, 500,000, whatever it might be, and it's not going to push it over that level most likely. And so your insurance is going to stay the same. There's always those chances that it might push it over that level, in which case you would have to increase your insurance coverage. But again, that's a conversation you're going to want to have with your insurance carrier. How will solar affect my home's value and property taxes? Well, as far as value goes, it will increase your home's value. I've seen some estimates out there that are a little bit more than I'm comfortable with, and maybe as much as 40%. What we tend to tell people with Sun is however much money you put into the system, purchased for the system, that's how much money you're going to have increase your home's value. So if you paid for a system that was $20,000 or $40,000 or whatever it might be, that's how much your property value will go up. I do think the bigger value is in your home's desirability, because people are going to look at that and say, a potential buyer, if you ever go to sell the home, they're going to say, wow, they have solar panels that produce free electricity. This is great. That makes me want to buy this house more. Now, as far as property taxes go here in Indiana, a solar system will not increase your property taxes. By law, that's the case. Now, your local taxing authority might not know that. Most places are going to know that, but every once in a while, you might run across somebody that doesn't realize that in your county office. And so you might need to inform them of that. And there's also a form that you can file with the Indiana, the state government, that precludes you from having to pay an increase in your property taxes. So just know that's the case. Maintenance, these are low maintenance systems. There's no moving parts. They don't break down typically. They just keep going. The only maintenance that I have heard people do annually, or maybe twice a year at the most, is if you live in a particularly dusty area and you want to take a hose and just gently, spray the panels off to clear that dust or dirt off of there. Some people ask about snow cover on the panels. Typically, of course, you're going to get snow cover in the coldest part of the year, which is also the shortest days of the year, so your production isn't as much. If and most likely your panels are going to be up on a roof, and so we recommend that you don't take the time and energy and risk to get the snow off of there. They're designed to warm up and to be affected by the sun, so they're going to warm up and they're going to melt that snow and ice off of there in a day or two, and you're just going to miss a few dollars of production off of those in those short days of the winter time. If you go to clear that snow off, you risk putting little microfractures in the panels if you're not careful, and especially if it's on a roof, we don't recommend you get up on a ladder in the winter time to kind of clear those off, because you risk injury to yourself, and the hospital bill is going to be more than the electricity value that you produce during that time. So that's our recommendation. Will homeowners associations allow solar on my home? In Indiana, there are some homeowners associations that in their covenants preclude having solar or limit it somehow in the homeowners association. Some don't. Some are open to that. Some are in the midst of changing their bylaws to allow for solar, but in some places there's a restriction. So your first step is to consult your covenant and to talk to the leadership of your homeowners association to find out if it's possible with the covenant and if there are restrictions on that. In Indiana, a bill was passed recently that allows homeowners in HOAs that don't allow solar a workaround. A certain percentage of the folks, if you put together a petition and have a certain percentage of the folks in the homeowners association sign that petition to allow you to have solar, then you can go ahead and do that. And if you want to find out more information about that process and what that looks like in Indiana, you can go to solarunitedneighbors.org/Indiana, and you'll see our page for Indiana come up there. And there'll be a link in there to our page on homeowners associations and how to kind of work around that restriction. So encourage you to go to that website if you have more questions, or contact us at inteam@solarunitedneighbors.org. And with historic districts, they sometimes have similar restrictions as HOAs, where you can't put it in certain places on your building. So we encourage you to talk to the leadership of your historic district. Oftentimes they will let you put the panels on the back side of your building if as long as they're not visible from the street, or there may be other possibilities. So we really encourage you to talk again to the leadership of your historic district. So that gets us through the basics of solar energy, and now we're going to move on to solar economics. Solar can save you money. The average rate of electricity across the investor-owned utilities, that's again the 5 big ones: Duke, AES, Indiana, which used to be IPL, CenterPoint, which used to be Vectren in Southern Indiana, I&M, and NIPSCO in Northern Indiana. If you average all those together, they've increased 47% over the last 12 years, and that's that big red line there in the middle of the graphic. While electricity rates have gone up, the cost of going solar has gone down precipitously, as you can see from the 1970s. But the costs have dropped 73% since 2010 because it's no longer a specialty item. So you get an excellent rate of return on investment with solar. And if you add to that the 30% federal tax credit, that's good until 2032, and it steps down slowly. And I'll have a slide about that in a moment. Solar is a great investment. One of the ways, though, that our co-ops can help you reduce your costs even further is that we help you connect with an installer. And because the installer doesn't have to spend a lot of money on customer acquisition, which is one of the installer's soft costs, they can get you a good deal on the system, and that's how we help you reduce the cost to you. You can see there that system components have come down greatly. Labor costs have decreased a little bit. Soft costs are the biggest part of the cost of a solar system nowadays, and that's how the co-op can help you save money. As I mentioned, we have, through the Inflation Reduction Act, a 30% federal tax credit off your taxes, not something that comes off your income when you file your taxes, but an actual tax credit that comes off your taxes $1 for dollar through 2032. It steps down to 26% in 2033 and steps down to 22% in 2034. So now is a great time with that federal tax credit maximized to go solar. Now, this is where we're going to get into the weeds a little bit on solar, the cost of solar, because it's going to vary from utility to utility, and it's changed recently in Indiana. So I mentioned at the beginning, near the beginning of this presentation, about net metering. Net metering, again, is where if you're not using, if you remember from our earlier diagram, and it shows on here, the panels absorb energy from the sun, they convert that to electricity, where it's sent to the inverter, and the inverter sends it to your panel, where it's used in your home. And then if you aren't using all that electricity at that particular moment, it sends it through the meter where it's measured, and then out into the grid. Now, with net metering, for every kilowatt hour you send out to the grid, you get a kilowatt hour off your bill. And that's still the case if you are a customer of Tipmont in the Tippecanoe, Montgomery County area, Tipmont REMC. And it's also true if you're a customer of Crawfordsville Electric Light and Power, if you have a system up to 10 kilowatts. However, in Duke, if you're in Duke territory, one of the large investor-owned utilities, you had net metering went away, as I mentioned earlier, in July 1st of 2022. And it was replaced by a system called Excessive Distributed Generation, or EDG. So and then that electricity you send out to the grid is not only credited at a lower rate through EDG in Duke, but it's also measured in a different way. So let's take a little bit about how the utilities call this different way of measuring instantaneous netting. We call it no netting because it doesn't really gain you anything from month to month, but they call it instantaneous netting. So this is just an example to help you understand, if you're a Duke customer, how EDG works. So let's say you use more electricity from the grid than you send out that month. The electricity used is 500 kilowatt hours, but the electricity you sent out to the grid that month is 300 kilowatt hours. So the electricity you used, 500 kilowatt hours, is charged to you at 15 cents a kilowatt hour. That comes out to $75 for the month. The 300 kilowatt hours you send out to the grid, however, is instantaneously measured and credited at 4.5 cents. And that only comes out to $13.50, which means your total bill from electricity use is $61.50 that month. Now, if you were in net metering, those $300 would immediately come off the $500, those 300 kilowatt hours would immediately come off the 500 kilowatt hours you used for the month, and you'd only be charged for $200 at the normal rate of 15 cents. But with instantaneous netting and EDG, it's a much lower rate of return. Now, this only shows the energy portion of your bill. You may have service fees, minimum charges, other fixed fees. These are going to vary from utility to utility. And another question we get often on bills is, this bill and most bills are only going to reflect what you send out to the grid and what you take from the grid. They're not going to show you what you self-consume. In other words, the electricity you use from your panels immediately before you send electricity through the meter and out to the grid. You'll have an app on your system that'll show you that use of self-consumption at your home or business. But again, with instantaneous netting, you can see that you're getting a much lower rate of return than you are with net metering. Here's an example. If you send more electricity out to the grid than you use from the grid. Again, you use 500 kilowatt hours from the grid. You send out 600 kilowatt hours. Your electricity, again, $75 that you get charged for that 500 kilowatt hours. And then the $600 you send out gets credited instantaneously at that EDG rate, which is lower, again, 4.5 cents. The EDG rate is 125% of wholesale that the utilities buy the electricity for, which is a much lower rate than retail rate. So you get $75 in charges again for the month, and now you get $27 out because you sent more electricity out to the grid, and you're still paying $48 a month for that electricity usage. Now, again, if this were net metering, as in the case for Tipmont or systems smaller than 10 kW for Crawfordsville Electric Light and Power, those 600 kilowatt hours would wipe out your 500 kilowatt hours that you took from the grid, and you wouldn't be charged any for that electricity usage. And in fact, the 100 kilowatt hours would roll over to your next month to use for the next month. So it's very different with large investor-owned utilities. So let's look at some sample pricing. Again, I can't emphasize enough, these are just examples. Your situation is going to look different. We can tell you what the electricity rate might be now for these different utilities, but those could go up and down, obviously, in the years to come. So this is just something to give you kind of a ballpark idea. Now, we're saying that the average Indiana solar co-op pricing when you purchase a system is going to be around $3.25 per watt. Now, that's going to vary depending on the type of system you get. If you get an upgrade, if you get a basic system, it's also going to depend on the installer that is selected by the co-op members. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We don't know who the installer is yet when I recorded this session, so we are using this $3.25 per watt as an average. So for 4 kilowatt system, it's going to cost you about $13,000, and for an 8 kilowatt system, obviously double that, $26,000. You take the 30% federal tax credit off of that, and your net cost is either $9,100 or $18,200. Our estimated savings, $611, or double that for an 8 kilowatt system. Your estimated 10-year saving cumulative is going to be over $6,500 for a 4 kilowatt system and about $13,000 for an 8 kilowatt system. So therefore, your estimated savings over the lifetime, you can see there $18,000 over that for 4 kilowatts and $36,684 for an 8 kilowatt system. So you do all the math together and you see a net profit over that 25-year, again, the warranty power production period of those panels for a 4 kilowatt system is going to be over $9,200. And for an 8 kilowatt system, it's going to be over $18,000. So that's for Tipmont with net metering. You're going to see similar numbers with Crawfordsville Electric Light and Power. Again, the costs are going to be the same. The savings are slightly less with Crawfordsville Electric Light and Power, but still good. And then you end up with a net profit. Again, with just this example, your situation is going to vary of over about $7,800 with a 4 kilowatt system over that 25-year period, and $15,600 and change on an 8 kilowatt system if you're with Crawfordsville Electric Light and Power. Now we're going to look next at Duke. If you happen to be a Duke customer, Duke's going to look different. It's going to look similar for the 4 kilowatt system, but much less when compared to the 8 kilowatt system, and I'll explain why in a moment. Again, your costs are the same in terms of buying the system. Your estimated 1-year electricity savings are listed there. Your 10-year savings are listed cumulative, and then you're at 25 years. So after 25 years, your savings are going to be $18,500 and change for a 4 kilowatt system, and $29,000 and change for an 8 kilowatt system. So your 4 kilowatt system savings net profit is going to be similar to the other two utilities, around $9,400. However, your 8 kilowatt system is going to be only almost $11,000, which is significantly less than the other two systems. So why that is because at a 4 kilowatt system, you're going to be using most of your electricity self-consumed at your building or at your home. So in a sense, all the electricity you use at your home is replacing a retail price of electricity that you're receiving from the grid. So it's going to look similar to the other two utilities. But with an 8 kilowatt system, you're going to be exporting more electricity out to the grid. And that electricity you export out to the grid is going to be credited at a much lower rate than retail. So the return on investment isn't going to look as good. So it's important to maximize, if you're a Duke customer, to maximize your self-consumption at your building and home, and to size your system right in order to do that, to use all the electricity at your place and not produce a lot of excess electricity. So if you look here at this system, the rate return on investment, the larger your system, because you're exporting more to the grid, the longer your return on investment. So if you have a 4 kilowatt system, based on the numbers that again, just as an example, you're looking about 13.5 years return on investment. So you're going to have approximately 11.5 years of free electricity within that 25-year warranty period. With an 8 kilowatt system, however, it's going to take you a little longer to pay it off, because again, you're not self-consuming all your electricity. You're sending some out to the grid because you're not going to use it all at that particular moment. And therefore, you're going to be receive less credit for that EDG rate. So we're recommending to folks that if you are on a utility that has an EDG rate like Duke, that you size your system not necessarily to cover 100% of your electricity if your economics is an important part of your decision, that you size your system around, say, 40 or 50%, whatever is going to maximize your self-consumption at your home or building. And your installer can help you figure that out based on your use of electricity, your history of that, and your budget and what your system looks like and how much it's going to produce within your particular situation. Now, if your reasons for going solar are beyond economics, or that's not as important to you, maybe the resiliency or energy independence or reducing your carbon footprint are more important reasons, then all of this maybe doesn't figure as prominently. But if economics are your reason for going solar, then you want to keep this in mind. And then, of course, very few of us have cash to pay immediately on a system right away. Many of us are going to be getting loans or looking for other opportunities for how to pay for your system. And so we are not finance people, and so I can't give you any specific recommendations, but some of your options is that you can either go through your installer, because a lot of times they're going to have some financing options available to you, or you can go on your own, either through a home equity line of credit, a standard loan, or a solar loan if your financial institution specializes in those, or a bridge loan. For example, one example of that is you purchase your system and you get loaned the money from your financial institution with the understanding that when you get your tax rebate back for your 30% investment tax credit on your taxes, then that 30% will immediately go to pay off a certain portion of the loan. And so you can get special terms for that. You can refinance your home and include the solar system in that. There are various programs for that. You can also go to a special credit union that might help you with that. Here in Indiana, Hoosier Hills is one of those credit unions that specializes in solar loans, and you can find a link to them on our website at the Indiana page, solarunitedneighbors.org/Indiana. If you are a rural business or a farmer, the USDA has the Rural Energy for America program, or REAP, and we have a guide that will help you with that. And there's a website that you can find out more information about that. This is a really great opportunity as a federal grant and loan program. These grants can cover up to 50% of the total cost for a solar project, capped at $1 million. But the people that can apply are farmers. If you get 50% or more of your gross income from your agricultural operation, or if you're a small business located in a rural area as determined by the USDA. And again, you can find out more information about REAP and other opportunities for rural folks at our website, solarunitedneighbors.org/REAP. And we have a fantastic guide that you can download there that can help guide you through the process. So that is the finances. Let's talk a little bit about how solar co-ops work. So why join a solar co-op? You know, we talked about why go solar, but why join a solar co-op? Well, we can help you get the best value on your installation. Again, the installers we run a competitive bid process, and installers send us their best bid because they don't have to spend a lot of time and energy and money looking for customers. They know they're going to have a group of customers that are well educated and enthusiastic about going solar. Secondly, we are going to help you through the entire process, help you learn about solar, help you if you need help talking to your installer or understanding what they're telling you. We're here to help you with that. We are consumer advocates as well as educators. You get to connect with other solar enthusiasts. There are going to be other people that join the co-op. You're going to meet, if you attend to Solar 101, you're going to meet other solar enthusiasts. We're hoping to hold 1 or 2 social events throughout the process of the co-op, and to give you a chance to connect with other folks interested in solar as well. And then you get to be a part of a growing movement to promote solar in Indiana and throughout the US through Solar United Neighbors. We also offer lots of educational opportunities for you, both during the co-op and after the co-op. So that's a real bonus as well. So let's talk a little bit about how the co-op works. It's in 3 stages. The first stage is we're starting to grow the co-op. You know, you could, just like you are now, you can attend a free solar co-op info session. You're listening to a recorded one, but we also have ones through Zoom online, as well as some in-person ones scheduled. If you go to the co-op's webpage, solarunitedneighbors.org/TM counties, and click on the events tab, you will find out when our special events are happening, including Solar 101s. You can sign up at that website to become a member of the co-op. It's free to sign up. It's free to get a design and quote from the installer for the co-op, and there's no obligation to purchase anything. And of course, we're hoping that you can help spread the word, invite neighbors and friends to join the co-op. That's what we're doing. We're encouraging as many people as we can to join the co-op. The second stage is when we select the installer. When the co-op has around 30 members, then we invite people to be a part of our installer selection committee. Solar United Neighbors, we issue a competitive RFP, a request for proposals from installers. They send us their best bids. We check the bids, we review them, we check references, we organize the information, and then we share that information with the volunteers who have from the co-op who have volunteered to be on the installer selection committee. And they think through the process, they discuss it, and they come up with a selection of 1 installer to service the co-op. Then in stage 3 is our sign-up deadline, is the time where the installer can come out to your place. They can look at your building or your home, design a system for you, give you a quote, and you can decide whether or not you would like to purchase a system. The deadline to sign up for the co-op is August 31st, and there'll be a deadline a month or so after that to decide whether or not you want to purchase a system. You get your proposal, you sign the contract if you decide to go that way, and then you have your installation. And then we have a party to celebrate afterwards, that not just the people going solar through the co-op, but all the people that have learned more about solar. And yeah, we get people together and have a great time. So as I mentioned, August 31st is the sign-up deadline for the co-op, so you don't want to miss your chance to join. You can go to that website, solarunitedneighbors.org/TM counties. to sign up for the solar and EV charger co-op. And again, you can get batteries through the co-op as well. And that's a picture of our website or webpage there. It says 0 members, but I already know that's starting to go up. So come join the party, as they say. So what's next? You've thought about going solar, you've joined the co-op, you've gotten involved a little bit, you've learned a little bit about solar. Maybe consider volunteering to help more Hoosiers go solar. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can, first off, you can join the conversation on our son's Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search for Solar United Neighbors Indiana, and it'll pop up. You can join that and see what else is going on with other solar enthusiasts around the state. You can help promote the co-op, as I mentioned earlier. You can talk to your neighbors and friends. You can post on your own social media accounts. You can post flyers for us, put out yard signs, either in your own yard or help get the signs out to other folks. However you want to help with special events, hosting those, however you want to help, we'd appreciate that. If you want to do even more, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, one of the things that we do as Solar United Neighbors is we advocate for better solar policy at the state and national level. So if you'd like to be a part of our Indiana Solar Action Team to advocate for better solar policy at the state level, we would love to have you. We meet once a month on Zoom, so you can do that in the comfort of your own home, no matter where you are in the state. You can learn more about what's happening in solar in Indiana in general, but as well as what's happening specifically with solar legislation or with our legislators at the state capitol, and how you can better advocate for and be a part of that advocacy for better solar policy, just for customer-owned solar in the state. So, other opportunities to volunteer with Sun, helping out with tabling events. We're going to be at farmers markets throughout the summer in the Tippecanoe and Montgomery County area. You can, like I said, you can help distribute flyers, share on social media. You can take pictures, photos, videos, whatever you want, and share those and more. Just let us know at solarunitedneighbors.org/volunteer. So again, I'm Dan Robinson with Solar United Neighbors of Indiana. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation. If you want more information or want to contact me or any of us here with Solar United Neighbors Indiana team, you can do that by emailing us at inteam@solarunitedneighbors.org. And again, the website for the co-op itself is solarunitedneighbors.org/TM counties. Thank you so much for joining us.